Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nerds of Legend. Sorry for our absence last week. I had ice storms that took up my power, as well as Monday, I had to attend a funeral, so we ended up kind of just deciding to scrap last week because I didn't have time, and also I didn't have the means of actually, doing the show. So, again, apologies. We should have put out some notice, but it was kind of quite the week last week. So with that, just a couple of announcements. We're entering into March, so I wanted to remind everyone that the third Saturday in March, which is, let me look at the calendar, is the 18th, or St. Patrick's Day weekend. We are going to be doing a follow-up stream with Darling Creepshow, where we'll be continuing our fun adventure where Dribble continuously tries to get high on things while getting yelled at for thanks, Hannah. Where Dribble continuously gets yelled at for everything. So, and then we'll announce our next book after this stream, as well as we're going to try next week to end up doing our Norse mythology tour. Where we're just going to kind of take a walk through the Pantheon, maybe hit some common myths. With that said,
we can spend the whole time just on the layout of the Pantheon.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what we're going to hit, and then we'll maybe dive deeper the next time.
March is Norway.
Yeah, March is about Norway, even though it's St. Patrick's month.
Guess who found out that he is actually part Norwegian? Don't worry, we're not cousins.
Oh, okay.
Even though I got my ancestry DNA stuff, and the first thing she goes is, as soon as it said that your DNA has been processed, she's like, "Oh, look, it says I've got a new cousin." I was like, "Fuck you," because that's always been like my fear is like you're gonna get on there and be like, "Oh, it looks like you guys are related." Of course, that makes sense. And I want to point out, Ben, we had a tornado today in Naperville, and we're still on. So I just want to point out.
Yeah.
I didn't even drop my work call.
Did it take out your power for 44 hours?
It did.
Where
you repaired it. Brendan actually came over and helped me repair it.
Cool.
Yeah, while doing a work call as well. Yeah. So I just want to say.
Well, I guess maybe I just suck. I could have just gone to the local Taco Bell and set up my computer and got things going, but I didn't.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Problem solving. Have a plan next time.
I'll remember that for next time. I'll be ready to pick up my entire gaming setup and go somewhere else.
Yes. No.
Don't try MMOs and Taco Bell Wi-Fi.
I know. Yeah. So
no, it was a hell of a week for all of us. So
Alex throwback there.
With that, let's get into the episode.
Timer started, Ben. I'm going to start the timer for your breakdown.
Well, we're going to be talking about Boneshaker by Cherie Priest. Boneshaker is...
Go. You've got your 5 minutes on the clock.
Boneshaker is basically a sort of steampunk zombie alternate history, like sort of urban fantasy book where it's set in the area of Seattle, where a instance has happened where the main character's husband, or late husband, was an inventor that was attempting to create a mining drill that would be able to dig through ice in Alaska to find gold. And during his testing of it, where we find more and more throughout the book, he unleashed basically a gas of some sort called the Blight upon the downtown Seattle, which when people inhale it and are expire due to it, are turned into zombies. So this entire downtown quarter of Seattle gets basically like walled off from the rest of it, and even the surrounding town has to deal with the effects of the Blight affecting the water and rain and everything else. The book follows the path of two different characters. One, the names are going to escape me, but
Zeke.
There's Zeke, and then the other one is the wife, which is, what's her name? I can't think of her name.
Blair.
Yes, Blair. The wife, Blair Wilkes, as well as her son
Blair Wilkes Blue.
Yeah.
As her
son Ezekiel Wilkes Blue, and basically because of their connection to this creation of the Blight, her and her son are both sort of persecuted by everybody they run into for their connection to this man.
Levi, her dad, her husband,
Levi, yes, Levi Blue, Leviticus Blue. The other thing is that there's her connection to her father, who's named Maynard, who is essentially like the lawman of Seattle, and he was highly respected in the community, was known for saving a number of people during the outbreak of the Blight, as well as basically being known as a very fair, honest, and good man that basically everyone respected this guy, respected Maynard's peace. So the story sets out where Ezekiel decides that he's going to go into the Blight to find their house and prove that his father was innocent of what he's been accused of, because Blair has essentially hidden and refused to ever speak about Leviticus, either positively or negatively, to him. And so it follows their adventures where Blair follows Ezekiel in, and we meet airship pilots, which is basically they drive dirigibles, are the main sort of like mode of air transportation. And
Briar.
Huh?
Not Blair. It's Briar.
Briar. Sorry. Yeah. Briar. Now I'm gonna be stuck with Blair for the rest of the time, and I'm gonna have to keep screwing up.
It was a B name.
I didn't think it sounded right either, but I just went with it.
There's something about it. Sorry.
Yeah. So they go through and they meet a bunch of different people. They get helped along the way to their connection to Maynard, and eventually come across a man who's also an inventor named Minericht, Dr. Minericht, who's sort of taken over this sort of blighted corner of Seattle and started trying to make money and weaponize the Blight. And Minericht ends up sort of orchestrating that Briar and Ezekiel meet with him at his sort of lair, because he's been purporting that he is in fact Leviticus Blue, even though he's not. And Briar's like, I know you're not Leviticus Blue, and I don't need to tell you why, but I just don't. And even if, just give me my son and we'll leave, and I'll tell anyone whatever you want me to tell them. And then for some reason, he doesn't feel like playing ball. So after they survive many zombie incursions, we're not going to get into the spoiler part yet of like why Briar knows that Leviticus Blue is dead, but the
7 seconds.
7 seconds. But they escape from the Blight, and as far as we know, live happily ever after, where they leave in an airship with a rather imposing figure.
Time. Not bad. We really thought you're at the start. We like, your pacing sucks. You're not going to get there. But
I had some interruptions, so
you did. So well done. As with all of ours, if you haven't read this book or don't want spoilers, get off here
and come back later.
Because we're going to be filling them up with it.
Yeah. So
as far as like the story went, this seems to be one of those stories where like it's a timeline diverge. Like I think it was a general didn't get killed that was supposed to get killed, and so the Confederacy is holding on a lot longer.
So basically, Stonewall Jackson did not die at Bunker Hill.
Yeah,
I think. And then basically because they didn't lose their star general, the Confederacy is able to hold on for much longer. And instead of only lasting for 4 years, the Civil War has persisted for 20.
Yeah. There's some problematic wording referring to people of Asian descent as Chinamen, but we believe that was more due to
trying to stay true to the time period.
Yeah, true to the time that actual just unregulated bigotry, like some for the older text. But this is
no, I mean it was written. It was published in 2009.
Yeah. So, but it was definitely true to the way of speaking in 1860. I don't know. I feel the story kind of meandered. I feel like it's definitely it's book one of a much larger series.
The pacing was strange to me.
It was very strange.
It was very. I feel like it was up and down a lot.
Yeah, a lot happened, and then they would sit and talk a lot. But when you look at it now, I listened to, which is by the way on Scribd. They have
an audio drama,
radio drama, which I love the old radio dramas, and I think they're fantastic. So it had like 20 different voice actors and sound effects, and all this stuff. So it was very immersive. That being said, it was
but the benefit of listening to it on Audible was that Will Wheaton was.
See, I had the Scribd one, which had Will Wheaton on it. I don't know where Joel found this other like dramatized
also on
version.
Scribd.
Yeah.
I did that thing where I had a PDF again.
Here we go. To just read.
Yeah. So
are you like the speed? Just curious, Brendan. Do you read like 700 words a minute or something like that? Because you seem to burn through this stuff and do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Teach us time management.
So two things. Number one,
don't have children.
No kids.
Never mind. We figured it out. Good night. Carry on.
Yeah. But I actually have to like pull my weight at my job now, so I can't just make coffee and listen to audiobooks at work. I have to do my
Thank you. That's what I did it today, but that is not
the whole book today.
Yesterday and today.
I was like, oh man, I picked Patrick Rothfuss. I got to really dig into this. All right, 1.5 speed, Audible, time to listen to work.
That's how I do everything. What do you do? Paperwork, and then I just plug in and do it. Yeah,
I just do lab work and reports and just like zone out.
This is a little over 400 pages, I think. So it wasn't.
It was only 10, 11 hours, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't super long. To answer your question, Ben and I survived engineering school, so you had to learn how to read very quickly. And
well, it's good because business and psychology, we don't do any reading whatsoever, ever.
Neither do English majors.
Literature, especially, they don't do anything. So thank God we got two engineers here, and because none of us could fucking open. I actually learned how to open a book just recently.
Okay. To give you some credit, we had to read a ton.
Some credit,
and we picked our major.
Our degree is literally in books.
We picked our majors. I speak for myself, but I know Ben agrees with me. I did not like writing at all.
Speak for myself, and Ben, you too.
We picked our majors because we had to do as little writing as possible.
Yeah, like very, very little.
Does your wife know you said her entire profession is illiterate?
I didn't say that. What I said was we reading was something that we were to finish as quickly as possible because we didn't like it. It's very different. Very different.
Okay, back to
the book.
Yeah, get it together.
Yeah, I feel like the spacing was kind of strange. But I did like a lot of the character developments that occur. I'm getting a little bit of a weird echo, Joel. I think you might have the volume too loud.
So
I'm hearing my voice.
So for me, like steampunk that is not American steampunk is really hard. I typically do not care for it. I just like any sort of steampunk outside of London, England, like Europe is a hard sell for me.
Why is that?
Like I liked the world. I thought it would it dragged down a little bit. Like the story, like the divergent stories, and then it's kind of anticlimactic. But I liked it. I thought it was well done. I could have done without, even if they're trying to be quote unquote true to the time, which they weren't. But I could have done without some of the racist words, language. I didn't think that added any sort of value, anything to the story. So I think they could have done without it. Yeah. But I thought it was okay. Like I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I was pleasantly surprised with it.
I feel like sort of the purpose of that was sort of to create this like underclass, like even within the Blight. So it's like, there's not only are these people are vital to the our survival in this like horrible like hellscape that we find ourselves in, but also we're still going to be racist to them because for whatever reason.
It's 1860 America, and that is.
Well, like sometimes I feel like a lot of people, like, in whether it's fair or not, like sometimes like writers are like, oh, I'm just super, like, I want to use these words and not get in trouble for it, so I'm just gonna write a book.
I'm just gonna say it's for the time,
Yeah. I mean, now the time,
like white rappers. They're like, I could say it. I rap. No, you can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Overall, I think it was a very well. Like I said, there were times where I felt like it dragged, and there were times where I was like, oh, I need more. But mostly, like, I feel like there were times where I was like, Briar kind of just like stumbled around and like
I feel like
from place to place. Like, but then for some reason she was like a crack shot with a fucking repeater, like out of nowhere.
Well,
like, which they commented on constantly.
It did seem they conveniently bumped into everybody who knew. Now, the one thing that I found to be difficult is I did not get a clear understanding of how big the walled territory was.
Yeah.
So, like, was it 3 blocks? Was it 300? You know, like, the fact that they're able to like walk in and immediately find somebody who's like, oh, I know your dad and I owe him a bunch of favors. I know you're, you know, it seemed
everywhere
weird.
they went. They're like, oh, I love your daddy. I love your.
There was a map with the book, with the print book, so that probably would give you a much better idea of the domain of the Walden area, because it's like I think past the first flyleaf they give you like even a numerical legend of where things happen. So I guess I got, you know, it was fortuitous to read it in this case.
Yeah, but in the audiobook I didn't get any idea, so it just seemed like a poorly laid out D&D campaign where they're like, listen, you're getting to that mountain and I don't care how long it takes. We're doing it in 30 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah, this is unrelated, but every time you're like, I read a PDF, now I'm just assuming you're pirating everything.
We're on Switch. What are you doing? Just,
like the dirigible people, they're pirates. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I was in the
That was the most steampunky thing.
Yeah,
we have an airship. What is it? Steampunk airship.
I was in the spirit of Airship Cruise. We'll say that.
Oh, here we go. Hold on.
I mean, I didn't have anything bad, like really that bad to say about it. You know, like I was pleasantly surprised.
I think the only thing I constantly was kind of like, oh, come on, get us back to Briar, because Ezekiel wildly went from like very oddly competent for a 15-year-old to just like being a dumbass. Like, and
I think that's very true to life, though. Like, nobody is more confident than people between the ages of, 13 and 20.
Yeah.
I don't know how often my children will come to me and tell me something. They're like, did you know? Like, I've never figured this out. And it's like the most basic level of understanding. But it's also, it's that neat bit of development where you're going from your like concrete thinking, your formal operational thinking, to more of the abstract, which they have these new thoughts. And so, like, I think this character was very well.
Yeah.
I
feel like he felt very much like a 15-year-old, like, because there were times where he's like,
I know what I'm doing.
It's like, I don't know what I've done. I just want my mom. It's like, I fucked up, and now I just want to go back to my mom. Please.
That's very much. I think it showed very strongly the idea of a kid who's like, I know about this. I've seen it. I've thought about it.
I've read all the maps, and I planned everything with my friend who's also a 17-year-old drug dealer.
Right. So they know everything, and that is all they need to know.
Like, what was, like, weird to me is, like, in the beginning, she's like, I never was around. I didn't really love my son. And he, like, I wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, she's, like, burning the world down to, like, get someone she treated with, like, apathy his entire life.
I feel like
That's just parental guilt, though.
Yeah.
That's like when you have to work. Every parent who goes to work immediately is like, well, off to neglecting my child
think there
again.
was a
Like,
lot. Yeah, I feel like the point of that was to basically be like, she worked as hard as she could to try and give him the best life that she could.
The characters felt
and then she's basically like, we're at the point basically with their relationship where Zeke's 15 and he just keeps like pushing her on this stuff, arguing with her on this stuff that she doesn't want to talk to about because she doesn't want to say the truth. But also B, he's being like she's trying as hard as she can and he's being ungrateful about it, sort of thing. So she's just kind of like, a lot of the things that were said by her at the beginning of the book were just like out of like frustration because like, don't you understand? Like, she's like, I don't get why you don't understand why like your dad is a piece of shit.
Well, nobody does that. Nobody inherently thinks, oh, my parents suck, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he was kept a secret, so you don't want to pretend you're from garbage. Like, kids don't inherently think their parents suck. You never meet them, you're not. You know, thank God, because then when they get older, then they realize you're idiots.
As someone who was raised by a single mom, there's only so much that a mom can do when a son is high school age. Like I wouldn't say truant, but I was doing so much on my own out of the house. You know, without a parental, without this father figure for a high school age boy being wrought with hormones and questions and bravado and you know, this idea of invincibility that they're going to grow out of. My mom could only do so much, and we were out doing stupid things and so on. So I think it doesn't really cover that, and it also doesn't really cover the fact that she knows what husband
happened. Yeah, she knows what he did and what he was like, and that. And there's always that thought that, you know, did I make another one? Yeah. Right? Is he
now? You know, you guys throwing out the she knows what she did.
So yeah, so we're just gonna come out. We're just gonna.
She could have just cut the whole thing out. Like, at the end of it, it was the most frustrating thing. Yeah. And this is the biggest spoiler, but, like, he's like, I'm going to go find what my dad did, and I'm going to find out that he was a good guy in this, and she could have just been like, he's a bank robber, and I killed him. And she didn't.
But she was worried, so, like, the whole point of it was because she was worried that, because he held, so, like, Ezekiel, like, doesn't know anything about his dad, but he's created this image in his head that
you do without information.
That Leviticus was this like hero, as actually a heroic figure that has basically been maligned for no good reason. And
then it turned out nope.
So she's worried that if she reveals the truth, that she could Leviticus Blue basically created this mining drill to and then robbed all of the banks in Seattle, and then in the process collapsed this section of the city that released the blight. And so then he was hiding out, and he was about to basically book it without her, and then she basically reached a breaking point where she was killed him. And so she was worried that Ezekiel would hate her then for that reason. But at the end of it, you find Ezekiel's nah, I found enough about this guy in the process that he's a piece of shit. Let's just go home, Ma.
Apparently he was really smart. He was a very talented maker, you know, an inventor and things. But for them, other than that, this guy sounds like he was just insane.
Yeah. And that's what he's painted as. He's this crazy inventor that he's sort of a mad scientist type. And so I ended up listening to another short story that's set in this setting, and it's almost seems like there's a common thread of just there's this misunderstood mad scientist type in a lot of the books in this.
That is the most steampunky thing I've ever heard. Mad scientists seem to be the only reason that steampunk goes around. They're like, oh, okay. What kind of science? Sciencey science. Tracks, perfect.
Hand wavy.
Yeah, hand wavy science. Do you have a ton of Jacob's ladder? Yes, I have a shitload in my lap. Perfect. Carry on.
Yeah, and then
you do anything? No. Yeah, just Jacob's ladder.
So I actually read this right after reading Killers of the Flower Moon, which is now being, I think it might be in post, if not approaching post. It's going to be Martin Scorsese's next film. And it's about the exploitation and murder of the Osage Native Americans in Oklahoma in the 20s, because the land that they were relocated to was seated on oil deposits, and they became very wealthy. And so, due to racist legislation, their funds were being taken care of by whites who were basically trying to murder them. And it was presented in a narrative style, but this is historically a nonfiction book. And right up to the point where zombie gas is released, the opening of this book, the prose and the way that it's presented, posed a line with nonfiction narrative. And so much of this book is period accurate, and I would almost consider it like historical fiction. Yeah, go ahead.
There was a sense of that. I will give a lot of the stories we had, the characters seem like one-dimensional or like a trope of a certain type. These all did feel kind of like they could be real people. Yeah. You know, the parental
I did find
fear,
it funny
like,
how many of the characters, sorry, I'm interrupting. I did find it funny how like many of like the men that Briar encountered throughout this book were like, he was the most gigantic man I had ever seen. And then you go to the next scene and it's like, he's the most gigantic man I've ever seen. And then they do it again. They do it 3 different times.
No, it was the same guy.
No, because she meets Craig, who's a huge black guy. And then she meets Flynn. She meets another airship captain who she doesn't realize until he stands up that he is 7.5 feet tall and like gigantic. And then she meets I think is Joshua, who is like basically this like he's got this like super steampunky like armor set to protect him from zombies, and he's got like Darth Vader outfit.
That was the same captain, because he was the steampunk. He was the airship captain.
There were 2 different captains that she met, and she was like intimidated by how gigantic they were. There were 2 different captains. Both of them, she was like, this is the largest man I've ever seen, and then proceeds to like, holy shit, this guy's even bigger than the last one. And then she meets the guy in the Blight, who's like, holy shit, this guy's huge.
It's like something with his last name his name started with an S.
Yeah. There was. I think a lot of it, like when they talked about the guy in the armor with the horns and everything, like the Minotaur horns, like all I could think of was it's Fallout. This is Fallout. The OG Fallout.
I thought it was. I thought it had 2 different tubes that came off it, so it looked like tentacles.
No, he also had the thing that looked like it had horns on it.
Horns on it. Okay.
Isn't always octopi in steampunk?
Yeah.
Especially
tubes and pipes. You cannot have steampunk without a bunch of clear tubes with fluid or gas flowing through it. Yeah. They don't have to do anything. They just have to be there.
The steampunkiness of it and the zombies. This is similar to the last book we read, where it's like those elements were the least interesting to me. It was all not the Neo Confederacy, but like the alternate Confederacy that was still existing.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I hate zombie stuff. Like, I hate it.
Well,
and these zombies were like, it's like the old maps of like, out here be monsters, you know, like, don't go over there, there's monsters. And so it kept limiting the reader to like a set scope of like, this is where what happens out there, you die. That's it. Don't worry.
What I found interesting with this was in a sense like how all the people had managed to survive in the Blight and had gotten around like the whole like issue of there's a zombie horde that's like that constant ever-present threat of the zombie horde. So they basically have these like safe houses that have like fresh air pumped into them from like above the clouds, sort of, or like.
But, yeah, that was neat too. The air tubes
that are underground. Yeah,
and how underground, the further down you go, the more elaborate
safer you are,
more like posh it got.
Yeah,
but I did find it funny. some of the parts is I never really explained. They never really explained where the blight came from. It's like, where did it come from?
They just kept saying it was volcanic gases from
but how
Mount Rainier. That was the
I do remember that part.
Yeah.
Like it just keeps going and getting thicker and thicker and
yeah, it's like the whole thing was like this, like he dug too deep with the Boneshaker and unleashed basically this volcanic gas that for some reason zombifies people.
But then you're able to dig deeper in the earth and be safer from it. They're like, this gas is everywhere underground. They're like, but if I go further underground, it's
the whole like zombie thing was basically like, how do we make a reason why all these people would be like stuck in this place underground?
And that was the like slowest like shrug.
I don't know.
I don't know. They didn't explain the. So there's like.
No, the zombies and the blight, they didn't explain.
Yeah.
But it definitely was used like, why do people live in here? Because they're drug manufacturers.
No,
you know?
but then there's a number of people that like you don't understand why, like they're just like were there before the walls went up, and then they're just like, nah, we're gonna stay here.
If you've got people still living in that town in Pennsylvania that's been on fire since 1974, like you realize people are dumb.
Yeah, there's a certain number of people that are just like, all right, leaving my house.
Your house is literally smoldering all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a weak person. Yes, but you're not a smart person.
Yeah, I had the idea. This could have been like a heist book. It kind of reminded me of like, I don't know.
There's a little heisty to it.
Yeah, but more like Escape from New York or something, where it's like, it's a dump. It could like if it were explosive gases or something like methane or something in the ground, and it was dangerous, and that's why it was closed off. And then, well, here's the thing: if you read about the Civil War, a big issue that the Confederacy had was getting supplies, because they would buy stuff from Europe. They'd buy weapons and equipment and stuff from Europe, and there was, they were basically trying to make sure that the supplies wouldn't get through, and there was an embargo, and so
that was the other thing. The other reason the Confederacy was persisting was because the British Empire had basically like broken the Union blockade.
Yeah.
So like then the Confederacy was able to be like continually be like supplied with weapons.
Right. So I thought the idea that like the Confederacy was having trouble sending equipment to like Virginia and Atlanta, so they'd send ships like to the West Coast because they weren't states yet, and they sent like Texas Rangers or some bloodthirsty Confederate colonel to come into the city and get the gold before they could or something. All I could think about was that idea. And I'm like, get rid of the zombies. Like, who cares? You know? That said,
they keep It's definitely, you can tell like this book is like a set piece within the greater Clockwork Century.
Yeah,
like,
it definitely. There's a lot of questions left open.
It's almost like
end where she's just like, "Yeah, I killed your dad."
So
what happened then?
I almost feel like
I was kind of like all right, get the end going.
All right, until it's like if there was an announcer at the end that was like, tune in next time to see what happens in episode 2. I'd be like, that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's definitely
radio serial for sure.
Yeah, it would have been an excellent radio serial, especially in the dramatic version. Like it was fun, and it was easier to keep the characters apart when each one has got a very distinctive voice. You know?
Yeah, I mean. If I listened to it, I would know. But the way they were written, they were very distinct.
I was slightly annoyed that they were like referring to these people having like voices and masks, but like for some reason you're still able to understand what they're saying. So like, because I feel like some of the masks that these guys have that don't have any speakers, they should sound like.
Do you know how an audio format would sound?
At least sound like. So like,
Brian, go this way. So it's all Bane. It's like the Bane's family just having discussions.
Yeah.
I gotta say the most realistic aspects of this book were the ones I liked the most. I really feel like if they had written it, Briar. I really liked Briar as a protagonist, as a female protagonist. I felt like
she was well done. Ezekiel was very annoying.
But he was written like
also
a kick-ass teenager, very accurately.
It was very much.
good.
I was like, oh yeah, this is totally a 15-year-old kid. Like,
Yeah, if it had almost been presented as like a faux narrative nonfiction, very similar to like Killers of the Flower Moon, and she just wrote it like this happened, it would be I'd be over the moon about it.
I enjoyed it.
so there were certain times where I was like, oh, this is cool. Like when they talk about like these like elaborate bellows systems that they made to like bring in fresh air, and how they basically like plugged up these buildings with like tar soaked rags and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like they'd go on, and then it'd be like back to like somehow like Briar just stumbles upon a pub.
See, the thing is, one of the things that this book did very well is they as you just highlighted it, is they would walk around and explain how things worked here. Like it wasn't other than the blight getting there and making zombies. There wasn't a whole lot of hand waving of like, why? Because shut up. Like it was
that was the only thing that was not like, okay. It was the only thing that it wasn't like, oh yeah, that makes sense, was they never like, which maybe different, like books further along, maybe they get into that sort of like, oh, this is what the blight is and what causes it and what not. I don't know. Maybe
this definitely seemed to be, the world building in this one was definitely a lot better. Like they had put a good deal of effort into the backstory of what their world is.
Yeah.
Before they decided to even put pen to paper. Like this one had some serious prep time, and it shows. It shows in the way that it's written. It shows in the way the characters interact with the environment, that the author has taken a good deal of time to understand what she is making.
Yeah. It's based off of like what. So like I said, I mentioned earlier that I read this other short story that was like in the same vein, which is meant to be, I think it was like the next book or next short story that came out after this one. It was set in the Clockwork Century. It was sort of like another sort of like, I feel like what she does is like she makes set pieces that are like could get slotted into the world. Like, oh, this is what's happening here in Seattle, but like maybe another book like this is what's happening on the battlefronts of the Confederacy and Union. Maybe like, oh, we've got like trench lines that are set up in Tennessee, you know,
right?
Or
it was interesting. I would not be opposed to continuing down this storyline to figure out, to kind of like explore this world a little bit more. It was, in my opinion, very well done. It was.
I was told by my buddy that the second book is even better. So like this is one of his favorite books. He said the second book is where it gets like.
Missy told me that you won a Hugo, right?
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah, Missy
the second
said
one
that
or the first one?
This one I know was nominated.
Yeah,
I know that much.
Well, maybe it didn't win it, but it won a different award.
Mm-hmm.
Like it said something about it.
Yeah, and I think it's just because
that's pretty good.
It's interesting how you don't often think like it's sort of like. You know, you watch like the Marvel What If or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, what would have happened if like the Civil War would have turned into like World War I?
Right.
You know, like
if they were
what
better,
would the U.S. look like?
And better, better supplies.
Because there's lots of like, there's lots of sort of like references to like, oh, when this war is finally over, maybe they'll come out here and actually like fix everything. You know, in Seattle or whatever. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to highlight. I thought it was interesting how when they finally get to this like, so they get in the city and like apparently nobody knows that there's like an entire like basically like civilization going on inside of the inside of the blighted area. Like there's an entire like industry and whatnot, and you get in there and like you find out like, oh yeah, there's people living in there, and they've like have a whole on industry going on, and
their whole. It's funny because Missy is done for the day. The baby has decided.
Bye, Missy.
Yeah, it's weird, but like their entire industry seems to be drugs
production. No,
Yeah.
well, so the other part of it is, so basically you find out, like, with this Dr. Minericht figure who's sort of, like, spoken in hushed whispers by the residents of the blighted area as this, like, super smart inventor guy. And
Yeah, she won a Hugo in 2010 for Boneshaker.
Okay. Cool. And then you find out, basically, like, it wasn't, like, Minericht was not, in fact, like, the genius inventor. He had basically found Leviticus Blue's lab and had basically found, like, the stockpile of all, like, his like mining equipment and stuff that he designed. He found his, like, basically his, like, inventor's notebook as well as, like, his, like, prototype experiments, and had like figured out how to, like,
not the Boneshaker lab,
right.
But
he had found like the other stuff that, like, that it was basically like figuring out ways to, like, weaponize it or, like, turn a profit on it. And then he used this, like, blighted area as sort of like, this is so that nobody can, like, actually get to him.
Right.
But, like,
nobody will come in there and fuck with him while he's doing his stuff.
Yeah. But
then he turned out to be, like, really good at, like, augmentative automation. Like, there was a lot of people that were in, well, Dr. Minericht made this hand for me. He made this for me. Yeah. And, like, it seemed like he was definitely had the smarts to make this work.
Yeah.
So he came in and, like, proved the value, but then he was trying to lock in I am Leviticus Blue.
Yeah.
And the only one
which is like, really solidify his power.
Which is really a thing that struck. Sorry, but the thing that struck me as strange is Maynard Blue, right? No, Maynard Wilkes. Yeah. So Maynard was like the lawman of lawmans. Everybody owed him a favor, and everybody looked towards. And then, like, the legend of Maynard and Leviticus Blue were like, everybody knew about it. It's like 16 years. That's all they talked about.
Yeah, there's
like,
definitely a lot.
I'm sorry. Have you ever had a really shitty year where, like, it seems like everything was a million years ago, but yet these people all have crystal clear memories of, like, this dude they talked to 16 years ago? Yeah. I guarantee, Ben, Monday last week feels like 17 years ago.
Yes.
You know, and that was just a regular shitty week, you know, like.
It kind of presents a scope problem. If you can have everybody in Seattle remember these two very important people, but in the same vein, you have no trouble, like, walling off an entire city in a period where cities were much smaller than they are today.
Yeah, right? It's like the Game of Thrones thing where, like, nobody knows what the fuck is going on in the next room, but can quote off, but just fire out whatever happened 7,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
In the world of the first men where we built the wall. Yeah, what's for dinner? Fuck if I know. I don't have time to figure that shit out. Anyway, back to my story about what happened with the first man. Yeah. You're like, you just brought in 7 pounds of potatoes and beef. I'm guessing stew. Shut up.
I also feel like realistically, like,
that people were living and thriving when you can just look over the wall, or how are all these people able to remember these powerful individuals when it's supposedly this massive city? You know, it's just like.
I think that was the other conceit that was, like, basically, like, if this, like, city was, like, there was literally no reason for people to, like, stay. Like.
No. Other than pride in their area. Like, it didn't seem like. Yeah. And the walls did not go up overnight. It's not like Stephen King where in that Under the Dome where they just dropped the dome one day and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like, these walls were built over time. You had a period of time to escape. Yeah. And these guys are like, no. But I mean, like, people are still, as I said earlier, they're living in Centralia. I looked it up. And, like, that place has been on fire since, like, 1976.
Yeah.
So you got the people that are like, no, this is home. I'm never leaving. And you're like, it's actively burning right now. And they're like,
is that whatever. Coal mine?
Yeah, where somebody fucked up and thought they'd burn something out, and it, like, burned the coal deposits, and they're going to be burning for like a couple hundred years.
Gotcha.
You know, yet they filmed Mordor not there.
Yeah, it's just funny because, like, there's certain parts of this book that are like, yeah, it makes sense, and then there's other parts where I'm like, but why? Like, why would you even, like, stay here? Like, and I get, like you're saying, people are stubborn.
But the people in this book were, in my opinion, excellent. Her description of people and the way that they did it, and especially the way that she's so
I feel like
embodied like the human psyche and the way like
everyone's motivations were like made sense. Like I feel like, and I feel like that's what's like lacking a lot of times in some of these books that we read, is that like there's sometimes where people like act like do certain things, and you're like, why the hell did that happen other than to move the plot forward? But I feel like everybody did things in this book with their own personal motivations in a way that like made sense. You know,
that was its major strength. I would agree with Ben on this. We've had this discussion before in the past.
Yeah,
that genre books pertaining to fantasy, sci-fi, in this case steampunk, the focus on making sure it fits the confines of the drama or of the genre are stronger than the characters' motivations. Like, oh, hey, we need spaceships, or hey, we need unicorns and pointy ears, and the defining characteristics. It's almost like tribalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And characteristics of what makes it belong in the genre are almost like destinations on the roadmap.
Yeah.
And I feel like any story is driven not by happenstance, but by motivations of characters. And I think that was the major strength of this book for sure.
Yeah, it was excellent with the way you want, like every single character and every single thing that they did in this one, you could have that underlying, that makes sense. Yeah, I can see why they would do that. Yeah. You had to give yourself that one.
Yeah, I think the only time that I got like I said, the only time I got annoyed was Zeke. But then you like think about it and you're like, oh yeah, he's 15 years old. I get it. he's a hormone-addled moron. Like
looking who's like here, like put his dad as like the hero for however long, and that was just, it was so well done. And
it's a slow realization of like, oh, it's sort of like part of it sort of like
human.
Yeah.
That your parents are human. It's also the interesting journey of like the youthful idealism of like my parents are these super beings that never fuck up, to slowly coming to the understanding that, wait a minute, like dad's kind of a dumb fuck, and he had some.
But then like that's like what happens is like you have this sort of flip with Zeke where I was like, holy shit. Like this place that my mom has only spoken of in fear, she went in there after me. Like my mom's the hero.
Yeah, like she's
and
here.
My dad was like the shithead, like.
Well, I think also the timing of the end. Like first off, he had gone around to all these people being like, "Yeah, Leviticus Blue did this. Leviticus Blue can do that," and he sounded like a super capable dude. But then at the end, to actually the mom be like, "Hold on, I'm going to show you something. Here's the Boneshaker."
This is
your
what your dad was doing.
Your dad planned to like steal all this money and then essentially abandon me and leave me in whatever was the wake of his mistake. And I killed him. And I did. There was a point of anxiety. Like you didn't know where you were going to go. Like if it was a kid was going to be like it was Zeke going to be like, hey, you robbed me of an opportunity to know my dad, even if he was a shitty dude. Like I could have made that assertion myself, or but no, he was like, you risked your life to come to this place that's absolutely sucks ass, and we've been here for 3 days, and I fucking hate it. Like it's worse than you.
Except
made it
he also like suggests that they just stay there.
Yeah.
Which is not clear in the book whether or not they just stay there to like kind of like fix things.
It did kind of fade to black. Like there is definitely.
Which is okay. It's probably set up for the next book, but
absolutely it is. Like part of you absolutely wants to read it. So.
Yeah. I'd almost be interested to see like a 5-year time jump where we see like 20-year-old Zeke like flying around as a fucking airship captain or something. But
20-year-old Zeke now is the master of the mist, and you're like, fuck me, this sucks.
Never mind.
Never mind. And I've learned to master the mist with the strength of my own mind. Yeah. This book took a sharp turn down. I hate it.
That's another thing. The Civil War was the advent of the ironclads, right? The Monitor and the Merrimack.
Yep.
Where are our Civil War airship battles? Right. This is begging.
Maybe there's another
ironclad airship.
We got one.
Yeah, but I mean, like on a massive scale.
Yeah.
It was anticlimactic. Like the airship battle was not like it.
I'm talking like blue and gray, like Antietam or something. No,
Yeah,
something massive.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, they'd have to go find that one airship anyway, but yeah.
Two things. One, someone who's read these is probably going to let us know that there was that's in the series at some point. And two, that's just me running away with always preferring the historical aspect of all these fiction books.
Well, it's interesting. It's like you look at modern day, and the reason that like dirigibles and blimps didn't become more prevalent, I think, for a bit, was because you had the Zeppelin failure of the
Hindenburg
the
blowing up.
Hindenburg. Yeah, the Hindenburg blew up, and they're like, maybe this isn't a great idea. But now there's a current in production like giant airship. I can't think of what it's called.
I would buy a fucking dirigible if I could. Like, you tell me honestly,
And it
you
looks
could
like
not.
a butt.
No, an actual just regular Zeppelin. What is wrong with you?
No, I'm saying
Why would
the
you-
one that's in development right now. It looks like a butt.
What's
No,
important?
I don't want to fly in a butt dirigible. I want a regular OG dirigible.
So hydrogen, when that was proven very quickly to be a bad idea.
Yeah, it's the most reactive one of the most reactive substances in the universe, and they're like, let's fill a giant boat and put people on it.
Right.
The thing that fuels stars, you know.
Yeah, the thing that fuels literally our universe. They're like,
So-
you want to put it in a small bag and then have it stay warm? That seems normal.
Rigid airships were built with helium afterwards. The United States Navy actually had a flying rigid airship carrier called the USS Macon. It was a.
Did you just look that up?
You did.
Because I feel like
I watched him do
you're,
it.
yeah, you're reporting this with like the glee of new knowledge.
Well, I knew about it already, but I wanted to make sure I had the name right. So
I knew about it already 10 seconds ago.
the reason why it wasn't feasible is because there's no way to adequately armor a balloon, really. You know?
And keep it light.
And keep it light. And well, the other thing is fighter aircraft. We needed them in larger number, and they became larger and was no longer feasible.
I don't know. It
But,
seemed like we had a bunch of trouble with a weather balloon a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, right. I guess the trick is just get it high enough up in the air, and then nobody will see it until you.
So the problem is we don't have them high enough in the air. That's what we're understanding right now.
Well, there's a thing where it's like no matter how light you make it, you make a lighter than air aircraft, there's a point where you run out of air.
Yeah,
That doesn't sound right. Sounds made up, man.
that balloon was so high. No, the air was so thin that
The only thing that could get it was the SR-71 at that altitude, I think.
the U-2. They sent the U-2 after
Yeah.
it, and that thing was built in the 50s, and we still fly it because it's the only thing that can get up that high.
Yeah.
So if you try to put aircraft on that sucker, the pilots would need to have like full tanks and everything, and the airplane wouldn't, there wouldn't be, it wouldn't have any, if it had delta wing or something, it wouldn't have any characteristics of flight until you fell thousands of feet. So unfeasible for carrying anything other than cameras, I suppose, or something else that goes.
I don't know, I'm a big fan of I like the old, the weird spacecraft. I remember as a kid, like that SR-71, I was like, that was the first plane model I ever built.
Stealth
was an
was the one that I
SR-71
was
Blackbird.
fascinated by.
Yeah, the one that looked like a boomerang, that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Well, there's the 117 Nighthawk. There's the B2
The Nighthawk.
Spirit.
The stealth.
Nighthawk. I had a professor that worked on that.
Yeah.
McGinn. McGinn was with. He recently passed, I think, within the past 8 years. But he was a professor at Northern Illinois. He was in Skunk Works, so he was in the. If you watch Top Gun Maverick, the test aircraft that Maverick flies at the beginning has the Skunk Works logo on it.
Yeah.
No.
He would
Lockheed Martin? Or no?
that or Boeing. It's one or the other.
Yeah. Or Raytheon. One of those three.
Well, I mean, it's a small party. I wouldn't be surprised if they're all working, right? But the problem they had with that thing is it's designed to deflect, and radar, and they needed a way for it to accurately transmit from the cockpit and receive signal, but it's designed to bounce off signals.
That's why they had that like antenna that stuck way out in front of it.
Right? Yeah. So,
Like frickin' it looked like the frickin' ship from not Duck what's that frickin' the old show, Flash Gordon. It looked like the Flash Gordon ship.
I need more than that.
Flash Gordon. Now that is some believable.
It looked like the
right
Flash
there.
Gordon ship a little bit.
Savior universe. Yeah. He worked.
I honestly think we should take a delve into Flash Gordon, and it's so believable science.
We should. We should.
Flash Gordon is possibly the most scientifically accurate sci-fi show I've ever seen in my entire life.
Joel, how are you on time? We're at 10
Missy's taking care of it. We're okay.
Okay. Oh, she went to go get him. Okay.
Yeah, she went to go get him. So, but yes, that is, for those of you who don't know, that is high sarcasm. Flash Gordon is the most ridiculous thing I have ever put in my eyeballs and ears.
Flash Gordon,
save every one of us. Yeah, so terrible.
Savior of the universe.
Dude, Queen didn't have to go hard on
But
that.
They did.
And Highlander.
They did.
And Highlander, they asked him, they're like, "Can you do a song for Highlander?" And they did what? We'll do 6, right? So they went hard on the mid budget '80s movies, right?
Dude, Flash Gordon started in the 1940s as a radio serial.
Yes, it did.
And
Especially
it's
like
so-
right at the beginning. Dun 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 dun.
Oh my God, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun,
So
dun,
terrible.
dun,
So
dun,
terrible.
dun.
We are getting off topic though. I would be okay with well, I could talk about Flash Gordon and its phenomenal awfulness for quite some time.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of like hit all the topics on the book that I wanted to hit. I guess we didn't really talk about the Indian princess, but
I had no idea. I feel like she just came in to fill a plot hole. Like,
yeah,
Well, so
she was basically there to explain who the hell Minerict was.
She was a real character, so
Yeah.
that was an actual person. So the
what? Like a historically accurate person, or
Yes.
like a?
Oh,
Well, then enlighten us. Why were you holding on this?
yeah, you're sitting
you're-
on that little
Yeah.
factoid there, you shit.
You're fake. You're fake revealing knowledge that you like. Oh, I've always known about this airship battle. Shut up. No, you haven't.
Come on, man.
No.
You're holding out on me.
No. The Monitor and the Merrimack was a
No.
very
We
well
know about that.
naval.
We know
Yeah,
about
yeah.
I know about that.
Get to the Angelica.
Right.
Or
So Princess
Angela.
Angeline. Princess Angeline, also known as
You got a picture? Throw it up. We need to see this.
Yes, sure.
Give us the screen.
Yeah. Stop dicking around. I'm upset with you.
There.
Boop.
This is a historical figure. That's probably why she was given appropriate reverence.
Oh wow.
But yeah, there are parallels to this and
Doc Maynard. What?
Dude, that's fucking great. Like, all of this stuff is like that. That makes the story even better.
I was telling you that the historical context was the strongest bit for me.
Yeah.
Along with the.
I didn't realize that she did some this author did some actual what was going on, who was around in 1860s Seattle.
Honestly, like the work done by this author, by Cherie Priest, in the creation of this world was like she nailed it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all know I've been trying to write, like I've been writing and I can make up shit, but like adding the real sense of knowing what's going on is rough.
Yeah.
And that, like, for my birthday last week, my wife got me a master class, which now I get to like read all these like Hugo Award-winning authors, like award-winning authors who are like telling you their process. So now I'm like realizing where I fuck up as a writer, which is everywhere. And it's throwing in, because I can do dialogue and I can do people, like I can do that, but the setting is like, why are we here? You're shut the fuck up. They're talking.
It's like when you were working on the Great
skill set-
Grift book. It
Yeah.
was like most of your chapters was basically just like all dialogue.
It's all dialogue. Like, it's just like when I throw a campaign in the air for Dungeons and Dragons, like with my studies and like understanding people, that's my strong suit, is the interpersonal interaction. But like, why are you here? I don't fucking know. Like, why are we here? What are we doing here? How's that work? I don't know. So I have to understand how things work. And so now I come into this book with a new understanding, for me, just devouring these classes and listening to what they're saying and realizing just how much work was put into the world building, how much work was put into understanding the situation that she chose to write about is phenomenal. And I love it. Like, it's just it is such a like you really as somebody that's learning more can come to respect the prep time.
Yeah.
You know. And I did. I go ahead.
We're getting close to time. We can
yes.
continue going for a little while, but Brendan, I believe it is your pick this time around.
It is. Astute viewers may have noticed the pick in my taskbar of Google Chrome. I shared the screen.
I did not see that, but
yeah,
let us know.
We'll be going with the 1970 novella "Ill Met in Lankmar" by Fritz Leiber. 1970 Nebula Award for Best Novella and 1971 Hugo Award.
So how long is that? Because you said novella, that usually means it's smaller.
Yeah.
Let me look it up. What we can do. So it's a series. It's often referred to as Lankmar or the Fafford and the Grey Mouser series. So what we could do is, if it's too short, we could probably just throw another one of the novellas on there. Mm-hmm. He wrote for magazines and journals.
Yeah.
I mean, we could still. It's not going to be hard to tear apart a novella. The discussions are where it's at. So
yeah, I'm trying to find the
a well written, even if it's a short story, can definitely hold a discussion.
Yeah,
I am confident we could go on this one for quite a bit longer. And in the very beginning, I would have been like, absolutely not. Okay. This one did not really start out that strong.
What was it one more time, Brennan?
Definitely interesting.
Ill Met in Lankmar. It's by Fritz Leiber. It's a 3-hour audiobook on Audible.
It is also
unscribed.
Oh, so we've got Ill Met in Lankmar and Ship of Shadows. Is that the second book?
Yeah, it's often. Well, that's the thing. They were compiled later as well. So kind of like
Ill Met in Lankmar and Ship of Shadows. Why don't we just do them both? Because they're unscribed as a combination. Perfect. It's 2 hours. It's a perfect size, I think. So
cool.
Yeah, because if you do the full set, it's 17. So let's do Ill Met in Lankmar and Ship of Shadows. It's 2 novellas by Fritz Leiber.
Yeah, that's marvelous. I like how that's how you decided. Like, I'm just going to decide. He's like, I'm
just going to decide he's Savani German, just because it's fun to do the voice.
But then I'm just going to decide he's from like Tennessee. He's like, my name is Fritz Leiber. Yeah, Fritz Leiber.
Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna say anything, and we'll read it. And when we come back, we'll find out. I'll reveal who he was, and you'll see how off or how accurate you were.
No, I'll probably end up looking it up in the meantime.
Right.
I just hear Fritz Leiber, and I just read that name, and I was like, oh, this is totally a German name.
German name with a Georgian accent. Fritz Leiber.
I assure you, he's not, for some reason, some random landowner who appeared in the early 1950s in Argentina. All right?
I wasn't against. I'm not against it.
Now I'm even more wondering.
It's not some dubious Deutscher, all right? So
Are we going to come across any thing problematic in this one with you choosing a 1970s?
I appreciate you asking. Hey, remember,
it says right at the very beginning, filled with racism, Nazi propaganda, as Brendan is known to pick.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's terrible. You're a horrible person.
Foundation was very progressive. Asimov was.
It actually was. Asimov was progressive, though, so.
Yeah. I would compare this to Michael Moorcock and his.
Did you just make that up? You're watching porn right now, aren't you?
Elric.
You just said, Michael Moorcock. I saw your Pornhub tab open.
Oh, please.
He's like, please, I just Google it.
Elric and Moonglum from Michael Moorcock, and then Robert E. Howard with Conan. It's sword and sorcery genre. Okay. So I know there's fair lasses with loose morals, and there's like magic is evil and not to be trusted, and there's uncaring, cruel despots and so on.
That's fantastic.
Okay,
that's
sounds like some good old swords and sorcery.
That reminds me of like my favorite genre, of like this shitty 80s, like late 70s, early 80s
movies.
Yeah, those are so great.
Crawl.
And Crawl was fucking hot garbage, and I will stop everything to watch it every time I see it.
That movie almost killed Liam Neeson.
Was that one you caught Leo? Was that one you caught Leo watching that one time?
Deathstalker 2, he didn't watch it. I was starting to watch Deathstalker 2. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And Leo just pops out of the room and he's like, what's happening? At the moment, the guy's like, saved this girl. He's just like, ah. And her titty pops out. And Leo's like, this is the best thing ever. It was the funniest thing because then he's like, he was over at my house. And so, like, I'm like, you're not, I turned it off. Like, we can't watch boob movies. And he looks at me dead. This is a 6-year-old, looks at me dead in the face. And he's like, Mom lets me watch boob movies. And I was like,
whoa.
I was like, all right, kid, we're going to do this. I'm going to call your mom on speakerphone and see this. And I called her and he's sitting there, not breaking eye contact, no nervousness. He's just
calling your bluff.
Calling my bluff. And I'm like, so do you let Leo watch boob movies? And she's like, no. Leo goes, I tried. Just
goes back to bed. Your son is a savage.
He just goes into his room like, well, I tried. You know, I'll see it one day. Like he keeps saying, he'll still reference it. He's like, remember that boob
on
movie
that kid.
Yeah, he's a beast.
That's inherited.
Yeah. He's so funny though. I tried.
No, it was worth a shot.
Like, what's funny is I think that's the only titty in the movie. He just came out at the boob part. And now he's like, I'm going to watch that booby movie.
It's the opposite. Normally it's supposed to be the other way around when you're like watching a movie and your parents walk into the room and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I swear this is not the entire movie.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
I have the boob curse, man.
Yeah.
When I was in college and I was home for the summer, I would just go to the Indian Prairie Public Library and just rent international movies and stuff all the time. So I'm like, oh, hey, this Korean movie Burning, I'll put it on. Breasts. Oh, yeah. Hey, I'll just watch some random 1987 movie about voodoo called The Believers. Oh, side boob. I'll just watch Rapid Fire with Brandon Lee.
I'm pretty sure this is all accident. You picked that out from the titty category in the library.
On purpose.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, shut up. No.
Look, I'm not going to look it up. There's probably a database for this, but purely
curated by yourself, you pervert.
And it's just like
according to
there's an entire Wikipedia page, and it's just like edited by
anime glasses up. Like here we go.
Edited by B Bunny.
Yeah.
He knows my secret nickname.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, everybody. It's been a good episode. We got a little bit off topic here and there, but
remember to check out Brendan's boobs.
Yeah.
For all chesty things in movies.
Yeah. And again, remember to hit us up in Wednesday. We'll be continuing our little Candlekeep adventure, and then on March 18th, we will be continuing our one shot that has turned now into a 2-shot with Creep. Darling Creep Show, and
I hope life slows down because I have yet to write the second half, so I need to get up.
Are you gonna do it the same day like you did the last one? It's okay.
Shut the fuck up! I spent a day and some minutes.
All right.
No,
Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you again soon.